So I got a little crafty on this piece that I started on last year, and I'm so glad that I waited to finish it or I wouldn't have found this texture fiber, which I'm currently going to use to bump up the shawl that my lovely muse is wearing. So you're going to want to wear gloves because this stuff is covered in some kind of something, and whatever this is, it sure is messy. So usually I apply the texture materials with the first layers of paint, but again, this wasn't the initial plan, so it kind of just fell into place. Now, honestly, I should have just tried it out, on a test subject and to get a feel for it. But where's the fun in that? The joy of art, the exploration, the playing, the learning as you go, the trial, the error, and trial some more. I measured out some pieces, laid them down, gave it a shape, then applied some layers, and from there, the rest is simply finding the flow of the garment and smoothing it out. After that comes the hard part, which is pretty much waiting for it to dry. Now, I let it sit for 24 hours because there wasn't nothing in the instructions that said, how long to wait. So I just let it do what it did. And after that comes the next step, which is pretty much painting. So for this one, I decided to go with the shadows first. So usually I go from, a mid-tone up and then incorporate some shadows after I get down a base coat. But I decided let me just start from a different perspective and work my way backwards, which was doing my darkers first and then coming back over it with the light paintings. See, with your lighter colors, you can see through them. So I figured let me just go ahead and keep an eye on where the darker tones are, and you'll see in a second when I start to apply that lighter coat how it shows through. So yeah. Your lighter colors, you get the benefit of seeing through them. So again, like I started off with the shadows, and now once I come over it with these light, like higher tones, I'm still able to see all the coat that I put under, the first time. So it helps, and it makes it a little easier to pinpoint where certain shadows are going or where certain tones are going, especially like with your mid tones and everything else. So it's a trial and error. You get to play around with it and see what works for you. And this was something different for me because, like I said, I usually start with a mid tone and then add my shadows and then come back over with some highlights. But this time I said, let me see something, and because my subject was lighter, I went the other way with it. So as you can see, I made a mistake and missed a step. Uh, you kind of missed the corset getting painted in the shawl, but here it is. So I'm doing a little slight detailing, just pinpointing location on what's what and where it's at, and just a few little here and there touch-ups before I work on some highlights. So the highlights, as you can see, is just mainly uh, where the light is touching certain areas on the cheekbones, on the shoulders, and the forehead. And since the shadow is already there, it's not too much that I have to do in that regard. So now just making sure that the light is popping on the skin correctly is, the main thing right here. And now for the hair is basically some shadow work, filling in those dark areas and leveling out the brightness, and then coming back over with some more dark brown and black just to give it that extra shine, that luster, and fill it on out. And then the baby hairs and the the little the details of the hair work, making the fineness of the hair look like hair. Now for the corset, now remember how I was saying about starting with the midtones and then adding your shadows and then your highlights? So this is where that kind of takes place. So I started with the medium color, then I come back over it with the shadows, where the darkness hits it, and you want to come through, let some of that color still show through, but overall, like where the shadows are, where that goes, and you just let those darker colors take shape, and slowly but surely it'll do what it needs to do. And as you can see, the color that comes through, that you leave space for certain colors, when you come back over it with those mediums or the high colors, it'll really give it some depth and add a little more to it. So now that I've added some highlights and brought out the actual colors in the corset, now the rest is just clean up and getting those fine lines in, those fine details in. It's now taking care of the buttons. You see the buttons, you probably couldn't see it before, but they really weren't filled all the way in. So it's just making those little fine tuning adjustments. Now I generally save like the black for last. When I start using the darkest colors, that means that the painting is nearing a close. So these little fine details, the pairs, the any lettering or anything that needs to be cleaned up, this is how I know that it's we're nearing the end of the painting. So now it's just basically going over anywhere that had any gaps or any any edges that needed to be cleaned up. Now I'm doing that, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty much, the painting is basically done. I'm not a big fan of words on my paintings. I like to leave it basically for the visual, for your eyes to see and fill in the blanks. But this one kind of fit the theme that the muse wanted to go with, which was the opera in the opera house, and that is the playbill of the actual the play, the Tosca, which was centered something about love, lust, and betrayal. So I kind of played that into the playbill in the back, the torn playbill, if you can see it, and yeah, I just worked it into the piece. And here she is, the finished piece. This is Vissi di Arte, Vissi di Amor. The final piece, you can see her standing at the opera house, watching the show, looking lovely as ever. And I got the hair in there, the texture on the curls, and in the background on the ripped page. And there you go, look at the shawl. You get to see the fullness of the shawl with this texture. Thanks again for tuning in, and I do hope you return.